Meet Steve. He earns 90 grand a year, has just renovated his family kitchen and drives a fancy car. Everyone thinks he's doing really well financially. But there's a problem. He has less than $500 in savings at the age of 45. Today, I'm exposing 8 seemingly smart purchases that are actually keeping middle-class people broke. Let me know in the comments section below how many of these seemingly innocent purchases you've made over the last month alone. Oh, and by the way, if you're new here, my name is Willis. I'm a qualified accountant who also makes YouTube videos on the side about all things money, personal finance, and personal development. Let's jump into it. Purchase number 1 is cheap, low-quality items. So we often think that buying the cheaper alternative is the best way to cut our expenses and save money because we're essentially getting the same thing, but for a cheaper price, right? However, what we don't often notice is that buying the cheaper alternative can actually increase the cost per use. An example I had recently was I bought a new vacuum cleaner. It was pretty cheap, to be honest. It was about $50. I literally used it twice, before it stopped working. And of course, because it was so cheap, it didn't have any kind of warranty or returns policy or anything like that. And so I'd spent $50 on a vacuum cleaner that I'd used twice. Therefore, the cost of using that was like $25 per use. But if you buy a $300 vacuum cleaner and that lasts you 10 years, you're probably using it hundreds of times, and so the cost per use is actually going to be very, very small. You've also got to bear in mind here that quality items can retain their resale value. And so let's say you have a good quality washing machine or a dishwasher or something like this, or a coffee machine maybe, and you want to maybe sell that secondhand on eBay or some other site. You can actually get a decent price for these secondhand appliances. And ultimately, buying low quality just leads to a small but consistent leakage of cash over a long period of time, which can really add up. Purchase number 2 is expensive car payments. So the average monthly car payment in America is around $742 per month, which is just shy of $9,000 per year. But the problem with financing a brand new car is that that asset significantly depreciates the moment you drive it out of the lot. As soon as there's just 1 mile on that car, the value of it substantially decreases. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that doesn't sound much like an asset. That sounds more like a liability. And then, of course, if you're buying a fancy car, you've got all the running costs. The tyres are going to be more expensive. It's going to need to be serviced by specialist engineers regularly just to keep the thing on the road. And at the end of the day, is a fancy car really going to get you from point A to point B any faster? In today's environment, where roads are pretty clogged up and there's a speed limit everywhere you go anyway, probably not. But here's a better idea. Why don't you just buy a car that is between 3 and 7 years old with around 40,000 miles on the clock? That way you can have a substantial saving while still also having most of the modern features like satellite navigation, a good sound system, parking sensors, maybe even cameras. And if we redirect this $9,000 into our investments over a period of 20 years at average market returns of say 8%, this turns into $437,000. Rich people buy luxury cars using the cash flow from their investments. They don't use credit, and neither should you. Purchase number 3 is expensive college degrees. So if you end up overpaying for a very, very prestigious university degree, this can lead to absolutely crippling debt. Currently, Americans owe around about 1.7 trillion with a T dollars in student loans, and the average monthly payment is $400 per month for a student loan. You see, the problem is that university tuition fees have risen by 8 times since the 1980s, and unfortunately, salaries and earnings have not kept pace. And studies have shown that elite degrees don't actually significantly impact financial success later in life. And actually, only 8% of millionaires graduated from prestigious private universities. A better alternative could be just attending a less prestigious university if it still gets you the degree that you need, because this will avoid a large chunk of that crippling debt. Could you also look into scholarships, apprenticeships, or community colleges, or even online courses to teach you the skills that you need in order to go into the field that you want to go in? There are many ways to get skilled up these days, and you don't necessarily have to go to university. Purchase number 4 is unaffordable houses. Have you ever heard the term house poor? Well, this basically means somebody who earns maybe even a large amount of money, but they've got such a big house with such a big mortgage and such big running costs that they're actually being kept poor because all their money goes to running their house. And so the cost of running that house is consuming too much of their income. And when buying a house, lots of people actually forget to factor in the maintenance costs, which are often 1 to 4% of the total value of the house per annum. And a good rule of thumb here is to try and make sure that your housing costs don't actually exceed 50% of your take-home pay on any given month. And I know this can be challenging depending on where you live, but if you can try and get this down to as low as possible, then that frees up a lot more cash that you can start investing and saving. And the ultimate cause of buying unaffordable houses is the state status game. You see, it's all about keeping up with the Joneses. We want to have a big house because somebody down the road that we know just bought a bigger house and we therefore need a bigger one as well, just to try and keep up with them. So it's important to try and flip that switch in our brains and just turn our head away from the status game and focus more on the wealth game instead. Purchase number 5 is activities that you can't pay cash for. So putting vacations, concerts and dinners on your credit card just ends up leading to a credit cycle where you're just constantly paying off your credit card, putting something else on there, paying it off, putting something else on there, and then you end up just in this horrible cycle of constantly trying to keep up with your credit card payments and fighting off that 20+% interest rate on your credit card, when really you probably didn't need to buy that thing anyway. So what's the solution here? Well, maybe we can create a dedicated high yield savings account and then save for a period of months for a one-off large purchase like a vacation or a concert or something like this. We can take the total amount that we need to spend on that thing, divide that by the number of weeks or months between now and then we know how much money we need to be setting aside each week or each month in order to pay for that thing in cash. And this is just the easiest way to eliminate that credit card cycle. And it's also important to remember here that many fun activities can actually be low cost. Like, I really enjoy going to the beach or going for a hike. Now, the only cost of getting to the beach or getting to the hike is to actually just drive there and park the car. So the maximum amount that you're spending is whatever it costs in fuel to get there, and then maybe parking if you have to pay for that. Purchase number 6 is overpriced convenience items. So here's an example. Steve loves to buy his $19 cafe smoothies that would actually cost him $7 to make at home. He's also susceptible to buying his coffee out, which can cost $5 or $6 every single day, but he could brew this at home for less than $1 a serving. You see, the problem here is that small, regular, little purchases like this that just add convenience do add up over time. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that we should never pay for convenience. There is a place and a time where we actually want to be paying for convenience in order to save our time, because what we don't want to be doing is spending time to save money when we could be spending money to save our time, which is a far more valuable resource. But if we're trying to get ahead financially, then we should look at ways that we can cut out some of these unnecessary convenience related costs. Like brewing a coffee at home, for example, would probably only take, like 5 minutes maximum? Purchase number 7 is endless home improvement projects. So constant home decoration and improvement projects can be a massive financial drain over time. I mean, picture this, right? You've just had your kitchen done. Okay, the kitchen now looks great, but the living area next to it now looks completely out of date because we've got this brand new kitchen. We need to do the living room as well. But the floors are now out of date in the hallway. Let's update that. And then the bedroom looks out of date. And then before you know it, you've ended up doing the whole house for tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on how big the house is. Chances are you didn't have all that money lying around either. You probably had to use credit cards or take out loans in order to make those home improvements. And so ultimately here, it's just really important to define what is enough for you and really just learn to be satisfied with what you have and not necessarily chasing the next shiny thing or the next upgrade that you probably don't even really need. Now, of course, fixing things in your home that are broken is a completely different thing, and that needs to be done from time to time. But home improvements and just upgrading things because you think it would be nicer is often not necessary. And this always pursuing more mindset is a middle class trap that really traps people there. It's the whole lifestyle inflation thing where you just get stuck because every time you make more money, you want to buy better things, and then it's just that hedonic treadmill effect. Purchase number 8 is sale items. And this is all about the spending to save paradox, so where you're just buying things because they're on sale. Now, ultimately, there's a big difference between buying something that is on sale that you genuinely need or have wanted for a long time and buying something because it's on sale. But at the end of the day, if you don't need that thing, then it's kind of pointless anyway. It's like buying 3 bags of dog food when you really only need 1 because they were half price. So overall, being aware of these purchase patterns can help you break free of the middle class trap where you're constantly spinning your wheels and not really getting ahead financially. And ultimately, if you're able to cut out as many of these purchases as you possibly can and redirect that money towards your investments, building your skill set, building your wealth, investing in yourself and investing in your future, that's the way you build true wealth and how you get out of that cycle. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I know you'll love this one. But don't go just yet. Please make sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel first. I'll see you over there. Bye.